Thank you for coming. My name is Rim Khadraoui, and I would like to welcome you to Amnesty International State of the World Human Rights Report launch. Thank you very much for joining us today here in Brussels as well as online. Today's press conference is a hybrid multilingual meeting with online translation into Arabic, French, and Spanish. Just a few words for the people online. For those who are connected, you can access the interpretation function by clicking on the globe icon, and you can pick which language you'd like to listen to. You will also have the possibility to ask questions in writing during the Q&A session after our panel. If you have any technical problem, reach out to our tech support team on Zoom. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the team of interpreters who are supporting us today for their contribution. So today's press conference will be divided in two parts. We'll be first hearing from our three panelists, and then we'll have a Q&A session for journalists. For those in the room, you should have got a printed press kit with the relevant document. And for those online, this will be shared with you in the Zoom chat. The media pack includes a list of thematic and regional experts in addition to our panelists. Thank you. Now we can start, and I will first introduce you to our dear panelists. First, we will hear from Agnès Callamard, Secretary General of Amnesty International, who's going to speak on the debilitation of the multilateral order, followed by Deprose Muchena, Senior Director of Regional Human Rights Impact, who will be joining us online, and who will discuss some of the forgotten conflict across the world. And then we will hear from Carine Thibaut, who's Director General of Amnesty International Belgium Francophone, and will give us an overview of the human rights cost of climate change. Before I turn things to our Secretary General, I would like to remind everyone that this is an embargoed launch until tomorrow, and that includes as well social media. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for joining us, and over to you, Agnès.
Thank you very much, Rim. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to you for joining us here in Brussels, and thank you to everyone else around the world following the launch of our annual State of the World Human Rights Report launch. Today, Amnesty International issues its strongest warning ever. As our report painstakingly documents, the current state of human rights globally is beyond alarming. And the world must wake up to this reality now, or else this historic juncture will mutate into historic devastation. Make no mistake, we are not thrust to this cliff edge merely by 100 days of President Trump. Do not help. A much longer descent led us here, made up of a toxic mixture of destruction of our rule-based international system and the intensification and globalization of authoritarian practices, including on this continent. From Gaza and Ukraine to Myanmar and Sudan, from the Democratic Republic of Congo to Afghanistan, years of failure to uphold international law without double standard culminate in people with the least paying the heaviest price. As we documented in our landmark report issued in December, Israel's genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, its unlawful occupation in the West Bank, and its violent system of apartheid are the bloody culmination of years of increasingly brazen rule-breaking and dehumanization of Palestinians, perpetrated with complete impunity. So too is Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. It killed more Ukrainian civilians in 2024 than in the year before. It continued to destroy civilian infrastructures, torture, and disappear. My colleague Deprose will speak about the many other conflicts often overlooked, but let me highlight here one more. We call it a conflict. The Taliban's war on women in Afghanistan. In 2024, the Taliban criminalized women's and girls' public existence. It is a threat to be born a woman in Afghanistan, and it kills you by thousands. The paralysis of the international community in the face of regression was stark, but the responsibility of the most powerful stood out. With abuse of their veto power, something we have been denouncing for a number of years, steaming prospect for UN Security Council action. But using Security Council veto power for a genocide, for an aggression, states such as Germany, the UK, and the USA showed not only indifference to the immense suffering of Palestinians, but were themselves complicit with it by continuing transfer of arms that enabled Israel's crimes and by suppressing dissent at home. The very architect of the rule-based order that arose beacon-like from the ashes of World War II, from the Holocaust, those who 80 years ago, exactly 80 years ago, crafted the UN, blueprinted the International Court of Justice. Today, those very actors vandalize the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. They vandalize the UN Charter. They vandalize the Genocide Convention. The rule of law, bending knee to power as power seeks to set itself above the law. Those betrayals are neither isolated nor sudden development. Over recent years, a creeping spread of authoritarian practices across the world, has seen state eroding fundamental rights and respect. And those trends have gained further momentum in 2024. We have denounced those trends in 2021, in 2022, in 2023. And what I can tell you is that in 2024, they escalated. In several countries, security forces imposed mass arbitrary arrest and forced disappearance, used excessive use of force to suppress civil disobedience. All manners of government sought to entrench their power and control, evade accountability, instill fear by violating people's rights from Europe to Asia, from Africa to the Americas. It has been particularly disconcerting to see advocates for the human rights of Palestinians face violence, harassment, and arrest here in Europe, as well as in the US. As I speak, German authorities have forcibly removed protesters from encampment, as well as attempting to deport people, banning others, including doctors, who have spent their months trying to save life in Gaza. Those people are not allowed in Germany. It is not just those expressing solidarity with the Palestinian people who have been targeted. Climate activists have been stigmatized, criminalized, including on charge of terrorism or extremism, including on this very continent. In the USA and almost everywhere else around the world. Terrorists, those fighting for our planet, while those destroying the planet are welcomed on red carpet. Surely, government the world over, have disbanded, suspended NGOs and political parties. At least 21 new states have adopted laws aimed at the suppression of freedom of expression and banning media outlets in 2024. Meanwhile, in many parts of the world, discrimination and repression against women and LGBTQI people intensified. Iran's new veiling law imposed flogging, exorbitant fines, harsh prison sentence. Malawi, Mali, Uganda criminalized, upheld bans on same-sex relations. Georgia and Bulgaria followed Russia's lead in clamping down on supposed LGBTI propaganda. And all those practices escalating in 2024 did that as extreme poverty and inequality deepened within and between states in 2024. This is not Amnesty speaking here, it is the World Bank. It is the World Bank, not exactly your radical actor, is it? The number and wealth of billionaires grew, but at everyone else's expense. Yet, many governments and political actors sought to scapegoat migrant and asylum seekers instead, using racist, xenophobic rhetoric to justify increasingly repressive measures and the weakening of the rule of law. Those trends gained momentum in 2024, and they have now been accelerating over the last 100 days. And let me be very clear, President Trump's first 100 days have been disastrous